Dinner should have been ordinary. A Tuesday night in Asheville, North Carolina, with the cicadas humming outside and the smell of rosemary chicken drifting from the kitchen. My mother, Marjorie, ladled mashed potatoes onto my plate, while the pale blue ceiling I'd painted myself reflected the glow of the chandelier I had chosen 2 summers ago. For a fleeting moment, I laughed about a client's obsession with velvet wallpaper. Then, like a hammer striking steel, the sound came: my father, Earl, slamming his glass hard against the oak table. The vibration silenced the room. His eyes were cold as mountain stone when he looked at me. "Harper," he said, his voice steady but sharp. "You've got 2 days to get your things out. This house belongs to Chase now." My fork stopped in mid-air. The room shrank, air squeezed from my lungs. Chase? My brother, the one who left Asheville 5 years ago chasing skyscrapers and investment schemes in New York, wasn't even here tonight. Yet suddenly, every nail I hammered, every roof shingle I replaced, every payment I made was erased with a single decree. $60,000. That was the figure carved into my bones. It was the savings I had drained 3 years earlier, when foreclosure hung over us like a thundercloud. I had handed it over not because they asked, but because I couldn't bear the thought of this house, the house where I sketched my first designs on the living room floor, being ripped away. I bought the sofa in the den so Mom could rest her aching back, the television she used for her cooking shows, the washer that saved us trips to the laundromat. This dining set itself, where Earl now leaned back smugly with arms crossed, was chosen and paid for by me. And now the deed was to be gifted to the prodigal son. Marjorie didn't meet my eyes. Her fingers shredded the napkin in her lap. She said nothing. Silence, her weapon of choice. Earl leaned back farther, like a man confident his gavel had struck. I felt a churning deep in my stomach, a mixture of nausea and rage, but I didn't raise my voice. I simply nodded, as if accepting, while my mind spun like a drafting compass. They thought I'd roll over, pack my boxes, and vanish into the Appalachian fog. They thought wrong. I pushed my plate away and excused myself with a calm they mistook for surrender. But upstairs, beneath that same pale blue ceiling I had painted with aching shoulders and cracked knuckles, I lay awake with eyes burning into the dark. Every brushstroke of that paint, every hour sanding warped floorboards, every check written to the credit union, it all glowed back at me like neon reminders of my devotion. Sleep didn't come. Instead, resolve did. By the time dawn lit the ridges of the Blue Ridge Mountains, I was already planning. Earl's words replayed in my head: "This house belongs to Chase now." But what he couldn't see, what neither of them could fathom, was that they had underestimated me. They always had. I stood at the window, pulling back the curtain I had hand-stitched with cream fabric to match the chandelier downstairs. Outside, the neighborhood stirred. Children biked down Laurel Street, neighbors waved from porches, unaware that the Lane family dinner had fractured into betrayal. I stared at the house across the street where Ruth Delgado lived, the neighbor who had watched me repaint this porch in the rain, who once said, "Harper, you keep this whole street alive." I wondered what she would think if she knew the truth. This wasn't just about walls and furniture. It was about trust, about the weight of invisible labor daughters often shoulder while sons are celebrated for promises they never keep. Cultural psychologists talk about the Cinderella complex, where the one who quietly sustains is overlooked until she finally breaks free. Lying in that bed, I realized I was no longer willing to play their forgotten daughter. 2 days, they said. They gave me a deadline, but they had no idea what those 48 hours would ignite. They would walk into this house soon enough and find it stripped of illusions, bare of comfort, and heavy with consequences. I whispered into the still morning air, my words firm as steel. "You can take back the keys tonight, but you won't keep what I built." The morning after that ultimatum, I woke to sunlight spilling through the navy curtains I had stitched by hand. My father's voice still echoed in my head, slicing through the silence like a courtroom gavel. For a long while, I lay staring at the pale blue ceiling, the very one I had painted with aching shoulders after working back-to-back freelance gigs. That color wasn't random. I'd chosen it to mimic a Carolina summer sky, to soften the edges of a house that once sagged beneath years of neglect. Every shade, every brush stroke carried my fingerprint, a reminder that this place had survived because I refused to let it collapse. My thoughts dragged me back to 2021, when the bank first threatened foreclosure. Earl sat right at this dining table, his head buried in his hands, mumbling about losing everything. Marjorie's eyes were red from crying, silent but heavy with resignation. And Chase? He didn't even answer my call. Mom excused him, he's busy with work in New York, as if that absolved him of all responsibility. I was 27 then, just finding my feet in interior design. My savings, $60,000 I had scraped together from midnight projects, odd jobs and endless hours sketching until my fingers cramped, was meant to be my down payment for a place of my own. Instead, I signed the check and slid it across the table to the credit union, saving this family home. Their gratitude came quick hugs, teary thanks, but faded faster than paint under summer Sunday. That was only the beginning. The house itself was a relic of better times, rotting at the edges. The roof leaked every spring, water dripping into pans I had to empty in the middle of the night. I replaced it, choosing shingles sturdy enough to withstand Blue Ridge storms. The kitchen counters were warped and stained. I scraped together cash to install granite slabs, cutting deals with a supplier I'd met on a cafe project. The sofa, gray and solid, was my pick, sturdy enough for movie nights. I wired up the 55-inch TV so Mom could lose herself in cooking shows she adored. When the old washing machine sputtered its last breath, I hauled laundry to the laundromat in the dead of winter until I could afford a replacement. Every detail, every improvement, was mine. I can still feel the texture of sandpaper against my palms from refinishing the floors, the smell of varnish lingering in the halls. I can still see Chase's face on the rare holidays he returned, swaggering into the living room with his 2 expensive suits, bragging about big deals that never materialized. Earl and Marjorie clung to every word, pride glowing on their faces. They never noticed my hands cracked from work, or the receipts stacked neatly in a drawer to remind myself this was real, this was mine. At church, Marjorie boasted to the neighbors, "Chase is doing so well on Wall Street." Meanwhile, I stood in the background, quiet, listening, wondering if the chandelier I had installed above our heads was invisible to them too. Social researchers write about unseen daughters, the ones who hold families together while praise flows elsewhere. I never thought I'd be the example in those studies, but I was. I carried the bills, the debt, the house, and yet, at every turn, I was reminded, Chase was the golden child. When he did call, it was rushed, always with a hint of arrogance. I'd be covered in paint or dragging lumber across the porch, listening to him brag about a Manhattan apartment he couldn't afford. He never asked how the house was holding up. He never asked about me. I thought my work spoke for itself. I thought love was measured in action, not in applause. That belief carried me for years until last night shattered it. The truth stung harder because the evidence was all around me. The chandelier, sleek and modern, swinging above the dining table, the cream curtains, custom-made to soften the edges of that very room. The floors, gleaming from nights spent on hands and knees. Every corner testified to my devotion. Yet, with a single command, Earl decided it would all belong to Chase. Lying in bed that morning, I felt something sharp stirring, not grief, but resolve. They could pretend not to see, but the receipts were real. The sweat was real, the house was real. And soon, the world would see the truth, whether my parents liked it or not. By mid-morning, the fire inside me had turned to focus. I brewed coffee in the kitchen I had personally redesigned, watching the steam rise against the granite counters. That room alone had eaten months of my life, and thousands of dollars, none of which seemed to matter to Earl or Marjorie last night. I thought about their ultimatum again, the arrogance in my father's voice, and realized something didn't add up. People don't just give away houses overnight. There had to be a reason they were suddenly so desperate to hand everything to Chase. I needed answers. That's when I called Maya Chen, my best friend since college, and now a lawyer in Asheville. Her tone was steady but sharp when I spilled the whole story, pacing the very floor I had refinished. "Something's off," she said, her mind already in motion. "If they're pushing you out this fast, check the finances. It smells like debt, maybe new loans." Her words sparked like a live wire. I hadn't considered finances beyond what I'd already paid off. My parents had always been tight-lipped about money, hiding bills in drawers, speaking in hushed tones when Chase called. But I knew who could help. 2 years earlier, I had designed the waiting area for Blue Ridge Credit Union, installing reclaimed wood panels and custom lighting to make the place feel less sterile. That project introduced me to Owen Brooks, a straight-talking branch manager with a habit of crunching numbers out loud. He'd once told me, I owe you for working late and getting that lobby done in time. You ever need a favor? Call. So I did. My hands trembled slightly as I dialed his number, coffee cooling beside me. Owen, I said when he picked up. I need help. I think something's going on with my family's finances. Can you check if there are any loans tied to my name? There was a pause. Then a promise. Give me a little time, he said. The wait was unbearable. Every tick of the clock echoed through the hollow parts of the house. I walked through each room, eyes scanning the sofa, the curtains, the appliances, each item I had bought, each proof of my contribution. The walls seemed to whisper back. You already know they've betrayed you. You just need confirmation. An hour later, Owen called back, his voice heavy. Harper, you're not going to like this. My stomach dropped. There's a home equity loan, $60,000, taken out 6 months ago, he said. It's in your name. You're listed as the primary borrower. Your parents and Chase are co-signers. If it defaults, you're on the hook. My knees nearly buckled. That's impossible. I never signed anything. I believe you, Owen replied quickly. I've seen the scanned agreement. The signature looks like yours, but it's off. The W in Harper is too sharp, and the loop on the L in Lane is missing. Someone forged this. A chill ran through me. My parents hadn't just betrayed me emotionally, they had stolen my identity. The very house I had saved with $60,000 of sweat-earned cash was being leveraged again with my name as collateral. And this time, they hadn't even bothered to tell me. Owen emailed me the scan. When I opened it on my laptop, the black ink leapt off the page, jagged and cruel. My name sat there in bold, tethered to a debt I had never agreed to. Around it were their signatures, Earl's, Marjorie's, and Chase's, neat and proud. It wasn't just betrayal, it was a crime. I forwarded the document to Maya, my hands steady despite the storm inside me. She called within minutes. Harper, this is textbook identity theft. With the evidence, we can file suit. But you'll need more proof, paperwork, bank letters, anything. Proof. That word echoed like a drumbeat. Proof was survival now. I thought of the attic, cluttered with decades of bills and records. If there was a trail, it would be there. Dusty boxes, tax returns, forgotten folders, all of it might hold the evidence I needed. I stood by the window, staring at the Blue Ridge horizon. For years, I had poured myself into this home, believing it was the anchor of my family, but anchors can also drown you. Now I had to choose, sink under the weight of their lies, or rise with the truth. I chose the latter. I shut my laptop, grabbed a notepad, and whispered to myself, time to dig. The attic smelled of cedar and mildew, a stale perfume of decades past. Dust swirled as I tugged on the dangling chain, pulling the creaky ladder down. For years, that attic had been a storage vault of Christmas ornaments, high school trophies, and boxes labeled with black marker. Today it was something more. It was a crime scene waiting to be uncovered. I climbed the rungs, my pulse a steady thrum in my ears. The morning sun bled through the small gable window, casting thin beams onto the mess of boxes. My hands shook as I rifled through piles labeled taxes, receipts, bills. Most folders held mundane things, Duke Energy statements, water bills, grocery receipts. Then, buried beneath a tangle of old wrapping paper, I found an unmarked folder. Its edges were worn, as though it had been shoved out of sight in a hurry. Inside, the truth waited. A letter from Blue Ridge Credit Union addressed to Earl and Marjorie confirmed a loan of $60,000 taken 6 months earlier. Pages of payment reminders, one stamped overdue, and then, a copy of the very loan agreement Owen had emailed me this time. In physical form, my forged signature scrawled across the bottom. I traced the loops with my finger, noting again how wrong they were. My name had been stolen, twisted into a weapon against me. As I sat cross-legged on the attic floor, a shiver ran down my spine. This wasn't carelessness. This was conspiracy. Chase had returned from New York broke, tail between his legs. Earl and Marjorie, desperate to prop him up, had decided my name, my credit, my future was the price. I stuffed the documents into my tote, heart hammering, when another thought struck me. What else had they overlooked? I dug deeper. At the bottom of a pile, I found an envelope from the Laurel Street HOA. It congratulated Mr. Chase Lane on upcoming exterior renovations and confirmed pre-approval for financing. The date matched the loan paperwork, my breath caught. Not only had they forged my signature, they had already paraded Chase as the rightful homeowner to the neighborhood. The betrayal wasn't just private, it was public. I descended the ladder, documents pressed to my chest. As my feet hit the hardwood, the doorbell rang. The sound jolted me, sharp and insistent. On the porch stood Ruth Delgado, our neighbor from across the street, clutching a plate covered in foil. Her gray hair framed eyes that missed nothing. "Morning, Harper," she said gently. "I saw you up early, thought you could use some cornbread." You looked troubled. I hesitated, then motioned her inside. She set the plate on the counter and looked around, her gaze softening. "You've done so much for this house. I remember you out here painting the porch in the rain. I told Hank, that girl's the reason this street looks alive. Your parents brag about Chase, but you're the one who's kept it standing." Her words cracked something in me. I wanted to cry, to confess everything. Instead, I managed to smile and thanked her. Before she left, Ruth squeezed my hand. "Don't let them take what's yours, Harper. We've all seen who really held this place together." When the door closed, I sank into the sofa, clutching the cornbread like a lifeline. Ruth's affirmation wasn't just comfort, it was evidence of another kind. Witness testimony. The neighborhood knew the truth. Still, my mind wasn't finished connecting dots. I opened my phone, scrolling through the Ring doorbell app. Our system had auto-saved clips for months. My fingers flew, scanning until I landed on the evening of Chase's return 6 months ago. There it was. Audio of Earl's voice, low and careless, as they walked inside. "We'll get it in Chase's name this time," he muttered. The words were grainy but clear, time-stamped and undeniable. Proof layered on proof. Forged papers, HOA correspondence, neighbor testimony, and now digital audio. The case wasn't just strong, it was ironclad. I grabbed a notepad, listing everything. The sofa, the TV, the washer, the chandelier, the curtains, every item I had bought. I called Blue Ridge Movers, my voice calm despite the storm inside me. "I need a same-day move," I said. "Furniture, electronics, appliances. Can you be here by 2? They confirmed. 2 days, Earl had said. But I was moving on my terms. By sunset, the house they thought was Chase's inheritance would stand stripped of everything I had poured into it. And when they demanded explanations, I'd have more than words, I'd have proof. As I slid the Ring audio file into a secure folder and tucked the loan documents into a binder, one thought steadied me. They had underestimated me for the last time. By the time the clock struck 2, the rumble of a truck echoed down Laurel Street. Blue Ridge Movers had arrived, 3 men in navy uniforms, their work boots thudding against the porch I had painted myself last summer. The air was thick with August humidity, cicadas screaming in the trees, as if even nature sensed the confrontation building. I opened the door wide and pointed to the items marked with neon sticky notes. The gray sofa in the living room, sturdy and worn in all the right ways. The 55-inch flat-screen TV, mounted perfectly by my own hands. The washing machine, my savior during those cold winter laundromat runs. The cream-colored curtains I had sewn to soften the dining room. Even the lamp by the hallway. Its warm light a reminder of nights I spent working until dawn. Piece by piece, they carried my history out the door. At first, the house groaned with the sound of scraping furniture and muted thuds. Then, silence began to spread, an eerie emptiness filling the spaces where my fingerprints had once been everywhere. What once looked like home, now resembled a stage being stripped bare after the final act. And then, just as the last curtain rod was lowered, the front door slammed open. Chase stood in the doorway, his tie loosened, face flushed with fury. A suitcase dropped at his side with a heavy thud. "What the hell is going on?" he barked, his eyes darting from the bare walls to the movers hauling the washer down the stairs. "This is my house now. Where's the furniture?" I crossed my arms, meeting his glare with a steady calm I didn't feel. "Your house?" My voice was cold, deliberate. "No, Chase. I took what's mine. The sofa, the TV, the washer, the curtains, all of it, paid for by me, not you." His jaw tightened, a smirk tugging at his lips. "You don't get to decide that. Dad said this place is mine. You're supposed to be gone." Without a word, I pulled the binder from my tote and held up the loan agreement, the one with the forged signature. "I know about the $60,000 loan. The one you and Mom and Dad took out in my name. This," I tapped the paper, "isn't just betrayal, Chase, it's fraud." For a second, Just a flicker. His face faltered. Panic crept into his eyes before arrogance rushed back like a mask. "You're making this up," he snapped. "You're jealous because I'm back and you're out." But I didn't flinch. "Owen Brooks at the credit union sent me the original document. Your name's on it too. The bank will want answers. Do you really think I wouldn't find out?" His smirk wavered, shoulders stiffening. He pulled out his phone, jabbing at the screen. "I'll call Mom and Dad right now. You'll regret this." Before he could press send, a knock came at the open door. Hank Miller, our neighbor from 2 houses down, stepped inside. His flannel shirt was tucked neatly into faded jeans, his posture steady as a mountain ridge. His eyes scanned the empty living room, then landed on Chase. "Everything all right here?" His voice was calm, but the weight behind it was unmistakable. Chase rolled his eyes. "This doesn't concern you, old man." But Hank didn't budge. "It does when I see someone getting pushed around. I've watched Harper fix this house piece by piece. I saw her out in the July heat replacing those porch boards while you were off in New York. She's the one who kept this place together." Ruth Delgado appeared in the doorway, arms crossed, her presence as solid as stone. "Everyone on this street knows it," she added, her tone sharp. "We've watched Harper keep this house alive. Don't stand here acting like you built anything." Chase's face reddened, his bravado slipping further. He turned back to me, voice dripping with disdain. "You're pathetic, Harper. Always playing the victim, thinking you're some hero. Mom and Dad know who really matters." I stepped closer, lowering my voice until it cut sharper than a shout. "If I'm so pathetic, why'd you need my name to get that loan? Why'd you come crawling back when your big city dreams failed?" His phone buzzed in his hand, our father's name glowing on the screen. Chase answered quickly, pacing as his voice rose. "She took everything, Dad. The whole damn house is empty. It's not a stay place." I stood rooted, unmoved. Hank leaned toward me, his voice low but steady. "Don't let him bully you. You've done right by this house, Harper. We all see it." I nodded, my resolve hardening like stone. For years, I had been the unseen daughter, the one carrying the weight of this family in silence. But now, stripped of their illusions and armed with proof, I wasn't the victim anymore. The house echoed hollow around us, every step ringing louder than Chase's bluster. And I realized in that moment, emptiness can be power. Because what they couldn't see was that I was no longer trying to hold this place together. I was preparing to let it collapse on them. The morning air bit cold as I stepped out of my car in downtown Asheville, the red brick courthouse looming like an old sentinel. Buncombe County's courthouse wasn't glamorous. It had peeling paint on the trim and a tired security guard out front, but to me it was a cathedral. Inside these walls, the truth could finally be spoken aloud. No longer dismissed as family drama but recognized as the crime it was. Maya Chen walked beside me, a portfolio under her arm and coffee in her hand. Her hair was tied back tight, her expression sharpened like steel. "We have everything," she murmured, running down the list like a surgeon before an operation. The forged loan agreement, Owen Brooks's email confirmation, the HOA letter addressed to Chase, the Ring doorbell audio, witness statements from Ruth and Hank, receipts for every item you bought. "Harper, this case isn't just solid, it's airtight. Kan Raselv brag tang for Stan and was of tel drays, and sense of the places them tarred on the enders to do states, then aider indization with like for selv, and was of the blangden for the mordlaith, and fively salve the scene with a stade for the salve lass of the dade for selv." Still, my palms sweated as we passed through the scanner and climbed the courthouse stairs. Anxiety clung to me, whispering doubts. "They're your parents. Chase is your brother. Maybe you should let it go." But then I remembered that forged signature, my name mutilated into debt, and my spine stiffened. This wasn't just about a house anymore. It was about dignity. The clerk's office smelled of paper and toner, the kind of scent that clings to bureaucracy. Maya handed over the thick complaint. Each page outlined the charges: identity theft, financial fraud, conspiracy to defraud a lending institution. The clerk stamped the papers with a heavy thud, the sound final, almost ceremonial. "Case filed," she said without looking up. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. A strange calm washed over me, not relief, but clarity. For years I had defined myself by sacrifice, pouring every ounce of energy into a family that refused to see me. Today I defined myself differently, as someone willing to fight. We walked outside, the mountain air sharp against my face. Across the square, old men on benches sipped coffee from paper cups, while a busker strummed a banjo near the fountain. Life moved on, indifferent to the storm in my chest. Yet for me, this was a threshold. Maya stopped at the curb and turned to me. "Listen carefully," she said. "They'll come after you emotionally. Your father with his authority, your mother with her silence, Chase with his arrogance. But none of that matters in court. Judges don't care about guilt trips. They care about evidence. And we have it." I nodded, her words a lifeline. "I'm ready." We drove back through the winding streets of Asheville, past cafes and art shops, past the French Broad River glittering in the Sunday. I thought of the house on Laurel Street, now stripped bare of my belongings. The movers had carried away every item I had worked for, leaving only empty rooms and echoes. It no longer looked like a home. It looked like a stage set for truth to enter. That evening, I sat at my small apartment, temporary for now, organizing everything again. The binder of documents lay open on the table, flanked by my laptop with the Ring audio cued, and a stack of receipts fanned like playing cards. I felt like a general before battle, my arsenal, not weapons but proof. Philosophers talk about boundaries as the architecture of dignity. I thought about that while taping my notes to the wall, outlining the timeline of lies. 3 years of payments from me. 6 months ago, Chase returned. Loan papers forged. HOA letter. Dinner ultimatum. Each event connected like beams in a house. And like any structure, once the faulty beams were exposed, collapse was inevitable. At midnight, Maya texted me a reminder. "Court date set, 2 weeks, get rest." But rest didn't come. I sat by the window, staring at the Blue Ridge Mountains dark against the night sky. Somewhere in that house, Earl and Marjorie probably slept soundly, believing their secret secure, confident I would be too weak to fight. They had always underestimated me. That underestimation was their first mistake. Their second was putting my name on a forged loan. I whispered into the dark, the words tasting of iron and resolve. 2 weeks from now, the judge will hear my story. And for once, the truth won't be buried in the attic. The courtroom smelled faintly of old wood polish and anxiety. Light streamed through tall windows, casting harsh rectangles across the benches. I sat at the plaintiff's table beside Maya, binder open, evidence spread like a deck of cards we were ready to play. Across from us, Earl and Marjorie sat stiff, their eyes glued to the floor. Chase slouched beside them, his suit ill-fitted, his restless tapping a rhythm of arrogance barely concealing fear. When the judge entered, the room hushed. His black robe swept as he sat, voice deep and firm. Case number 24CV673, Lane versus Lane. My heart skipped at the sound of it, my name, finally tied not to their lies but to my fight for truth. Their attorney, a weary man in a rumpled gray suit, opened first. He spun tales of misunderstanding, claiming I had consented to the loan, that it was a family arrangement, that no crime had been committed. His words sagged under the weight of their own weakness. Then Maya stood. Her voice was clear, cutting, the kind of clarity you can't ignore. She walked the judge through every piece of evidence. First, the loan document with the forged signature, projected on the screen for all to see. She pointed out the inconsistencies, the sharp W, the truncated L, subtle but undeniable. Next came Owen Brooks's affidavit, confirming the loan was processed under my name, without my presence, without my approval. Then the HOA letter, cheerfully congratulating Chase as if he were the rightful owner. Finally, Maya played the Ring doorbell audio. Earl's voice crackled through the speakers, unmistakable. "We'll get it in Chase's name this time." The courtroom seemed to hold its breath. Earl's face went pale. Marjorie's eyes shimmered with unshed tears, and Chase shifted uncomfortably, his smirk evaporating. The defense tried to object, to twist context, but the weight of evidence was crushing. When Ruth Delgado and Hank Miller took the stand, their testimonies sealed the coffin. Ruth described my years of labor painting in the rain, hauling materials, reviving a dying house. Hank told of watching me replace porch boards in blistering heat, while Chase was nowhere to be found. Their words carried a simple, undeniable truth. I was the caretaker, the provider, the one who held the house together. When it was my turn, I rose slowly. My voice shook at first, but steadied as I spoke. I told the judge about the $60,000 I had saved for my own future, the nights spent working side jobs, the sacrifices made to keep the house from foreclosure. I described the betrayal of discovering my name stolen, my signature forged, my credit shackled to debt I never chose. My throat tightened, but I did not cry. Your Honor, I said, family is supposed to protect you, not weaponize your trust. I didn't come here to punish them. I came here to reclaim my life. The judge listened intently, his face unreadable. When he finally spoke, his voice carried the finality of thunder rolling over the mountains. The evidence is clear. The loan is voided. Harper Lane is absolved of any financial responsibility. The defendants Earl, Marjorie, and Chase Lane are found liable for fraud and ordered to pay court costs and damages for emotional distress. A gasp rippled through the room. I closed my eyes, a weight lifting from my chest I hadn't realized I was still carrying. But the ruling went further. Due to arrears and fraudulent activity, the judge continued, the property at 412 Laurel Street is to be sold to satisfy the outstanding debt. Shatters was permissions to Jane. I didn't look at my parents. I didn't need to. Their faces said enough, the shock, the crumbling pride, the dawning realization that the house they clung to as Chase's legacy was slipping through their fingers. Chase's shoulders slumped, his swagger gone. Outside, the mountain air was crisp, almost celebratory. Maya placed a hand on my arm. You won, Harper. They can't touch you now. But I didn't smile. Victory was bittersweet. The house was gone, destined for auction. Yet, it no longer felt like a loss. That house had been my prison, a monument to sacrifice and invisibility. Today, it became the tomb of their lies. Weeks later, I heard the outcome. The bank foreclosed. The house was sold at auction, barely covering the debt. Earl and Marjorie moved into a cramped apartment on the edge of town, their pride in tatters. Chase took a job selling used cars at a dealership off Smoky Park Highway. His Wall Street dreams evaporated. They left me voicemails, each dripping with guilt or blame. My mother's shaky voice, Harper, how could you do this to us? My father's fury, you've ruined us. Chase's venom, you'll regret this. I deleted each message, one by one. Then I blocked their numbers. The silence that followed was the sweetest sound I'd ever known. Months later, I unlocked the door to my new one-bedroom near the French Broad River. Sunlight spilled across the gray sofa, the same one I had rescued from Laurel Street, now shining in a space that was wholly mine. My days filled with color swatches, cafe redesigns, and lobby projects. Every check I cashed built my future, not theirs. Sometimes, I'd sit sketching by the window, washer humming softly in the closet, and think, design is choosing what stays and what goes. This time, my life's blueprint belonged entirely to me.